Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Among the most important lessons I learned in graduate school weren't from my classes or even from my dissertation. They were between the cracks of all that. First, that fear can motivate. As a graduate of relatively lowly Queens College, I was nervous to come to lofty UC Berkeley for graduate school. They would discover that I'm not that smart. I was particularly scared about the graduate level statistics courses that were required, so as soon as I arrived at Berkeley, I got the textbook for my first statistics course. It was a month before classes were to begin, but terrified of failing and getting kicked out, I forced myself to study the textbook for an hour each day. I usually could get through only a few pages in a day. I made it a little easier on myself by doing it while at the nearby Crown Beach. That pre-work was invaluable both to keeping my stress under control and not failing the stats courses. The next lesson is to consider questioning authority. I learned another lesson early on. I had killed myself in writing my first paper, and my heart was pounding as the professor returned the papers. Across the top on mine, he wrote, B, should have been an F, except you tried so hard. Go to the writing center. Tail between my legs, I toddled to said center, and there, they inculcated the centrality of precision in language. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but subconsciously, I didn't like what they were urging. Their approach made my sentences accurate, but boring, hard to read, sometimes impenetrable. They liked sentences with lots of nuance-building qualifiers, and I'm only moderately exaggerating to say that they encouraged sentences like, the preponderance of the evidence suggests X, Y, and Z, but there are countervailing variables that need to be accounted for to avoid assigning excessive causation to some potentially irrelevant covariates. I was too callow and insecure to bring such doubts to consciousness, and good little boy, I dutifully wrote that way, and I did okay. After I graduated, I decided I wanted to write for the general public and showed a draft of my first effort to my neighbor, Ray Mattoon. Word by word, he showed me how I was sacrificing too much readability for the amount of precision I gained. He was confirming what I previously couldn't allow myself to think, that the vaunted UC Berkeley experts weren't necessarily right, especially if I wanted to make a difference for a large number of the public, rather than please the handful of academics that would read a journal article that I would write. Anyway, I've since had a lot of my writing published, so I guess I wasn't too wrong. Next lesson I learned was to give a different gift. My wife and I were invited to one of my professors, the home of one of my professors, and instead of the standard bottle of wine, my wife gave her a pie plate. Somehow, my wife and the professor bonded over that, and they chatted. And by the end of the evening, the professor asked my wife, how'd you like to come to graduate school at Berkeley? After which she was promptly admitted. Without that pie plate, I doubt it would have happened. Next lesson I learned was to not pay too big a price for prestige. I was so flattered I had been admitted to Berkeley that I would do whatever they asked me to do, even take the 5 required statistics courses, even though I knew I'd never use most of that. Even more head-shaking when a statistics professor named Leonard Marasciullo asked me if I would take a 6th course in statistics. Internally, I screamed, no! But I smiled and said that I'd be honored that he asked me. Next lesson, take some control. I was assigned an advisor and couldn't understand why it was him. It seemed so random. His research was on something I had shown no interest in and had no interest in. His focus was on paired associate learning. It's a potential precursor to some learning theory, but for me, it was too far removed from the real world. Finally, having taken a course from Michael Scriven, who was an expert on the evaluation of innovation, I asked if he'd be my advisor, and fortunately he agreed. Not only did he shepherd me toward that important practical field, he has become a lifetime friend. He's now 93, and we still speak every couple days. Another example of the need to take some control. The proposal for my dissertation had been approved by all 5 committee members. As long as I followed that blueprint, I'd get my degree. I did do so, and indeed 4 of the 5 committee members approved the dissertation, the final dissertation, and per the tradition, they signed the first page. But the 5th professor asked me to come to his house, whereupon he said, Marty, I think you should get another 100 subjects. That would have taken at least another 6 months. Probably wouldn't have changed the results, and besides, I had done what the committee, including he, had said I needed to do. I wanted to get started on my career. So when he asked me to get another 100 subjects, I was in shock and unable to censor myself, and so I blurted, no. He signed. When we're in a subservient position, whether it be subservient to a boss or to a university program, it's tempting to kowtow. I'm not advocating an a priori bias toward rebelling against authority. I ask only that you avoid reflexive genuflection. Sometimes you're more expert, at least about you and your life, than are the experts. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.